In 1979, I broke a school record upon graduation. All these years later, I was told that record I broke then was still standing today unbroken. That journey, that success didn't happen by accident, as you all know it. It requires those ingredients, dedication, passion, focus, strong focus, and hard work to make it. I'm sure for you to make it here today, you had to rely on these key qualities in life to get you where you are. For me, another lucky chance happened. Upon graduation, America sent their very first cultural delegation to China under Nixon. In that group, there's a famous Western choreographer, teacher, and the artistic director of the Houston Ballet, Ben Stevenson. He taught 2 master classes in my academy, discovered me along with another student, offered us scholarships to study in America, in Houston. After 1979, there never have been any cultural exchange students ever being allowed out of China, let alone going to America. So we were going to be the first 2. The school officials didn't think that was going to be ever possible because up to 1979, it will take people roughly up to 2 years to get your passport, let alone visas. So the school officials chucked the invitations at the bottom of the drawer, didn't think twice about it. A few weeks later, they received this surprise phone call from the Chinese government, inquired about our visa situation. They didn't realize that Ben Stevenson had a very powerful friend on the board of the Houston Ballet, and her name happened to be Barbara Bush. Now, many of you may still recall George Bush Sr. was the first special envoy being sent to China under Nixon, before the 2 countries even established the formal diplomatic relationships. So it was through that Bush connection, quickly we got our passports and visas, we're ready to go. But there's another major hurdle. At age 18, both my friend and I didn't speak a single word of English at age 18. But somewhere they found this English tutor, came in, gave us 2 days worth of crash English course. 2 days. You could well imagine just how much we learned in these 2 days. Somehow I got hold of this tiny Chinese English dictionary, about the size of mouse, little red book. And I drilled into every word. I tried to master every expression in that dictionary. I thought to myself, if I could understand everything in this little thing, I'll be fine when I get there. Through learning, I discovered these 2 wonderful expressions. I thought to myself, these will become highly useful when I get to Houston. One of them was, oh dear me. And the second one was, upon my soul. Of course, I had absolutely no idea how old-fashioned this little thing was. The day before we left China, we were called into the Chinese government, lectured by this cultural official. She said to us, remember, you're representing over 1 billion people in China. What do you say? What do you do? Will have direct implications for people back home. If people ask questions, we don't think you understand them, but you never say the word no. No is a negative word. You offend people with that. You should always smile, nod your head, say yes, regardless what they say. So we thought that was a fabulous advice. We truly took that to heart. That trip leaving China, just getting on the airplane for the first time, sitting there, being served this beautiful meal by this gorgeous-looking hostess, I thought to myself, I must have died and gone to heaven. And I feel so guilty sitting there. I even offered to wash the dishes. Arriving in America was just beyond belief. Everything shocked us greatly. Because after 18 years of our lives, we were told completely different things by Mao's political propaganda about the Western world. That first night, we were taken to this fabulous Chinese restaurant in Houston, probably the best Chinese food I ever had. Truly. No, truly. The first time I ever tasted the Peking duck. That night, food just poured on, dish after dish. Of course, we gobbled. Everything came our way. After the first few dishes, we were absolutely stuffed. Couldn't eat anymore. Still, dish after dish poured on. Halfway through the night, we thought, something's going wrong here. Of course, only at the end of the night, when this full tableful of food was virtually going to be wasted, a lot of dishes was even untouched, only then we discovered what went wrong. Of course, throughout the course night, our host kept asking the same question over and over. And that question was, are you still hungry? Of course, we kept smiling, nod our head and said, yes, yes. Everything was upside down for us. Everything was a cultural shock. Even the very next morning, we were offered English muffin for breakfast. We only understood 2 words in that phrase, English and muffin. Of course, muffin in Chinese means horse shit. Now, the biggest shock of them all was I was taken to this fabulous shopping mall. People from Texas would know this place called the Galleria. Occupies several city block wide, multi-story height. For 18-year-old, have not seen much of the world, going to this massive shopping mall. Anything you could find there in the world was a shocking experience. My director took me there for his Christmas shopping. Within 2 hours of Christmas shopping, he spent enough money equivalent to my father's entire life's earnings. You could imagine just what shock I was experiencing. I don't want to tell you too much more about my American experiences, but one in particular I have to tell you just brief in a nutshell. As I said to you earlier, I nearly lost my life over it at a certain part of my journey. And this one defining moment, the darkest moment in my life, happened when I was 20 years of age. In pursuit of something we could easily take for granted in our lives today, was called freedom. I was willing to lose my life over it. When I was locked up in the Chinese consulate in Houston for 21 hours against my will, when these 4 guards came to drag me away, I truly saw my life pass me by. I had 2 choices to make that night. One was to risk losing my life. If I persevere at my dreams, hoping I could come out at the other end to have my life intact, have my freedom at the end. The other, probably the easier choice, is to agree to be taken back to China. And I could still probably be the most highly respected dancer in China, but I wouldn't lose my freedom. You can see I have no choice, because my aim that moment was the best dancer in the world, to become the best I could possibly become. Only freedom opportunities could allow me that chance to become what I become. So eventually, I hang in there, never gave up on my big dream. 21 hours later, with FBI surrounded the council and sealed the airport, took the 2 top leaders of 2 countries, negotiated my release. I still could remember this moment. I walked out of the consulate as a free man for the first time in my life at age 20. You could imagine. From that moment onwards, I had traveled this incredible journey of discovery, journey of achieve excellence in my life, reaching one new height after another. Truly, the sky was my limit. I went on to become one of the top 10 dancers quoted by the New York Times, winning 2 silver and bronze medals at 3 different international ballet competitions. They were the equivalent to the Olympics of the dance world. But it didn't matter how successful I became as a dancer. This deep-seated sadness inside me could never overcome. I was cut off from my beloved mother, father, and all the people I loved back in China for many years. I couldn't even write a letter home. Forever, we thought we have lost each other. And 2 years later, I was dancing in Washington, D.C., dancing the Prince in Swan Lake. A couple of days before the show, Barbara Bush, who was still on the board of the Houston Ballet, invited my director and I to the White House for tea. During that meeting, she learned about my difficulties with China. And on the opening night, they invited the Chinese ambassador and the cultural attaché to see me dance that night. During the intermission, they asked the Chinese guests if they could help me. I didn't believe they would, but I was wrong. Eventually, the Chinese government gave my parents permission to leave China to visit me in America. What an incredible dream. What an incredible, impossible dream that came true for us. For my parents, they never left their hometown before, never went in a car, on a train, on an airplane before, never went into a theater before, never seen their son dancing before, yet they're going to experience all of these emotions in that single trip. The night they were to arrive was the opening night of Nutcracker performance in Houston. I was dancing the Prince that night. Wonderful friends in Houston went to the airport to meet them, going to take them to the theater to see me before the show started. But their plane was terribly delayed that night. When my friends realized they were going to miss my show, they desperately want them to see me dance, to be proud of what I've achieved of all these years of dreadful separation. Eventually, they called up the Houston police for help. The police eventually came with sirens, escorted them through the heavy traffic in Houston, rushed them to the theater. Still, they were going to be late. They're going to miss at least half of it. Then my director, Ben Stevenson, decided to wait for them. They delayed the performance by up to 20 minutes, patiently waited for them to arrive. During the 20 minutes waiting, words had spread out throughout the audience of their arrival. They all knew my life story. Eventually, when my parents finally walked into the theater, the entire audience burst into applause for them. There are so many teary eyes in the audience that night. Of course, no doubt the worst of them all was my poor mother, with tears flooding down her face. I didn't think she saw a single thing I did on stage that night. I have probably done well over 2,000 performances in my lifetime in front of presidents, prime ministers, royalties. I don't remember that many so vividly. That performance that night in particular, I would forever treasure with my heart. You could hear a pin drop. Indeed was one of the most memorable performances in my entire life. Only during the intermission, my parents finally led back on stage, and there we were. We could only stood there, speechless, could only hug in a pool of tears. Years worth stored words in our hearts couldn't find their way out. The most memorable moment came at the end of the show. My parents led back on stage again. I didn't know how they feel their first theater experience, ballet of all things. Eventually, when my parents came back, and I could see this positive expression on my father's face. When he got closer and closer, he kept looking me up and down, up and down. I thought to myself, what does he look at? And finally, he said, Lee, why didn't you wear any pants? And of course, he had never seen a pair of tights before in his entire life. And just quickly, just want to share with you why after I leave this wonderful dance career in America, worldwide, went to Australia at the end of the day. It's all because I married an Australian ballerina, and also because that's another stage of my challenge. That's a new height I want to reach in my life. Eventually, that our first daughter, Sophie, was born. She was born deaf. And the journey in front of us with her was incredible. My wife, one of the top ballerinas in the world, decided to sacrifice for her. And each waking minute of Sophie's life, Mary will be banging pot pans behind her head, help her to detect the sleight of sounds, to repeating the same word 1,000 times over and over. And that hard work, dedication paid off. Now Sophie just turned 17, goes to one of the normal, highly academic school in Australia, A grade student, loves to play piano, and even speaking Chinese. And this miracle journey had truly demonstrated 2 points in life. One is success of any kind requires that sacrifice, that dedication and passion. The second one is require that perfect relationship at home with your spouse, with your family, and the relationship at work with your colleagues, with your team, with your clients. Needs both set of partnerships to give you the right balance to last the distance. To finish, I'd just like to say that these days I go back to China all the time, lecture, and being asked for advice by the Chinese government on the arts scene. I have a wonderful relationship with China. We even helped establish several investment ventures, joint ventures in China these days. And life truly had turned out, but the risks I took along the way was truly worth it. I'd like to leave you these few finishing remarks for your thoughts. Looking back at my journey through the trials and tribulations, the shattered dreams and revitalized hopes, I realized that life's all about finding inspiration, seize the opportunity, strive for excellence, and reach as high of the height you could possibly reach. Throughout my journey, there has been incredible challenges along the way, but often I realize on the verge for you to give up your pursuit of the excellence, success not too far away from the seemingly unconquerable hurdles. To me, success has no limit, no boundaries. Success is how big you dare to think and how hard you're willing to try. Success depends on the little things you do and extra efforts you put into on a daily basis. Success belongs to people who dare to travel on roads less traveled and never take no for an answer. Finally, success is about making positive contributions to our society by bringing hope and courage into the lives of others. Thank you very much.